Off panel, off topic with Jake and Tyler.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Off Panel Off Topic. This is a first of many. This is something that I did kind of similar to Halo. This is a TV show that Tyler might not be watching, or maybe doesn't have the streaming service to watch it on. So I'm still watching it and I'm still enjoying it. So here we are. It's a solo review for HBO's The Last of Us. And yes, I am someone who played both games. I think both games are great. I think the story is better in the first game. But I have grown to enjoy The Last of Us Part 2 more, the more I think about that story. And it's a game I probably would go back and play again. It's just, I just wish the Abby sections were in different parts of the game. But that's a different video for a different day. We are talking about the HBO adaptation of the first game. And right out of the gate, I think, whew, you know, it's funny because you see how things are, and it's when you think of the tier list of video game adaptations, and you think of where we've gone since Super Mario Bros., the first one with John Leguizamo, and you see where we are now, and you still see things like Uncharted, which, oof, that was a movie, wasn't it? I don't even think I reviewed it I was going to review it for the channel, but I didn't because it was I don't remember anything from that movie. And I shouldn't have, whatever. Again, different video for a different day. The Last of Us itself. Sorry, there's a lot I want to get to, and my mind is all over the place because I'm just so excited to talk about this show because, again, I didn't talk about it much on the podcast. I didn't really follow a lot of news for it because I'd already had a sense that I thought this adaptation was going to be pretty faithful, especially because I knew that Neil Druckmann was working on it. And so I knew there was a close relationship with Naughty Dog, and which, shocker, it works out. Shocker, it's a good fucking premiere. Amazing. And I've seen these comparisons on Twitter, and I think it's fair because as someone who reviewed Halo for this channel, there were things that I really enjoyed in Halo, but there were so many things, like a lot of people said on Twitter, so many changes and different things for no real reason. And I know we're only one episode into the show, but I can already tell that, again, Neil Druckmann, the guy who wrote the game, was working on the show and was working with Craig. I can't think of it. I'm going to have to pull up his name. I can't remember his name. Well, anyway, he's the guy that did Chernobyl, which is also funny because he used to work in comedies, and he made the movie Superhero Movie, which is like a spoof of the early 2000s superhero movies. And now he's here making The Last of Us, which is a very serious, grounded drama. Just crazy where life takes you, I guess, especially for that guy. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed this episode, and I think it gives me hope for future adaptations, and it gives me hope that more people will understand that these stories like The Last of Us or God of War Ragnarok that are heavily focused on story and heavily focused on narrative can translate to a TV show or a movie. And it just, to me, further proves that video games are much more broader and mainstream than people give them credit for, even in 2022. Because, and sure, The Last of Us is something that's going to pull in a normal audience. I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people that watch the show that haven't played the game. That's true, but I mean, it's trending all over Twitter. It's blowing up. Like, people still love this franchise. People still wanted to see this adaptation, and I think it was a long time coming. And it gives me hope for the God of War show as well, whenever that comes out from Amazon. But I really like the subtle changes, because that's another thing that I was worried with adaptations. I don't mind if you deviate from the comics. I mean, look at the MCU. Look how much they've deviated from the comic books and storylines of the comics. I stopped watching it after a while, but The Walking Dead, I used to read the comic pretty religiously and watch the show, and I liked the changes in the show because it's an adaptation. I do like the little subtle changes that were made in this episode. Because, yeah, The Last of Us itself, the game, the story is one of the best stories in a video game of all time. So you're going to want to keep a lot of that in there. And they do, but they might make nice little changes. Like the cold open was really cool, and I really like that because in the game, the cold open, by the way, spoilers for this first episode. I know I'm 5 minutes in, but spoilers. The cold open for this game is for the show is different from the game, but very similar. So in the game, it's like news reports and the stuff of how we got to the infection, and it just kind of starts you right at the point of the infection. Whereas this takes a little bit more time, which is an interesting choice for HBO as well, because given that it's an HBO original, this first episode was an hour and 20 minutes. And I know HBO has done that before with Game of Thrones, but that to me is an interesting sign because that also says that HBO truly believes in this thing, is going to push it. So I could imagine hour-long episodes, and I would not be surprised if this is the last hour and 20 minutes. I could see the finale being 2 hours. I mean, shit, Stranger Things did 2.5 hours for their finale, so anything's possible at this point. But the intro is really cool, and it takes place in the 60s, and it's an interview about pandemics and viruses and what we got in the game with that it being fungus and that it's something that has happened as the earth has gotten warmer, that this fungus can adapt and control people. Like, all that is told through news reports and audio diaries and stuff like that, sprinkled in at the beginning of the credits. Well, it's done in the same way, but with a TV show format, and it's an interview in the 60s, and I just thought that was really cool and really effective, and again, showing the difference of this is still the same story, but it's clearly for a different medium. And then, again, spoilers. The death of Sarah was incredibly impactful in the first game. It's heartbreaking in that first game. Shocking. It's not as shocking in the TV show if you played the game, right? But the fact that we spend more time with her, we see her with Joel longer, we get an extra scene of that, we get a scene of her in school, we actually see her be a character. And I'm not saying Sarah wasn't in the first game. They had little things in the game that you could find that have backstory, like fun little notes and stuff like that you can have exploring her room. You get that again in this format of a visual format. You get it through her in school and actually having extra scenes. I like the additional scenes and fleshing her out because I think, while I know it happens on the show, and again, shout out to Pedro Pascal's performance here too, it was so much more heartbreaking on the TV show. And I think it is because again, one, I'm a different person than I was 10 years ago. I have a family now, so stuff like this is a lot more impactful on me. Sure. But two, I got to know Sarah more in this than I didn't get to know her in the game. And three, I mean, Pedro Pascal, holy shit. Like, he kills that scene, and it rips your heart out. And that is, like, I think the first 20, 25 minutes of the show. And it's a 80-minute episode. And it really, just like the game, is such a stab to the heart. And it's just so well done. So well done. And then, of course, we get more story like we did in the game of like what the quarantine zones are and how those rules work and who is the governing force and all that stuff. And then, of course, we see the graffiti for the Fireflies, have that introduction. And then we see Ellie with the Fireflies. I'm really fumbling the bag. I can't remember the name of the woman that talks to Joel. Marlene. Marlene was the name. I had to look it up. I like the interaction with her and the thing with Joel and just the whole setup. That's similar to the game of there's something special about Ellie and you got to get her, you got to make the delivery and get her across states, and the journey that we've been on the game is on the show. That's all that's set up there. I just think the performances were very, very good. I was very impressed. And I already liked Pedro Pascal. I think he's great in everything he's in, from Game of Thrones and Mandalorian. I liked his performance in Wonder Woman. He's just chewing the scenery, having a good time in that. So yeah, he's in a lot of really good stuff. Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent. He's hilarious in that. So I'm not shocked that Pedro Pascal delivers a pretty damn good performance as Joel. He really kills it in this show. I really liked Gabriel Luna as Charlie. The little bit that we get to see of him. And yeah, overall, I really enjoyed it. And it's such a novel thing, but it really is the idea of they got Neil Druckmann involved. This Sony is, behind this. Sony Television is producing this with HBO. So there's a clear push for Sony to do this stuff. Yeah, they got that Uncharted movie out, but now we've got the God of War show coming to Amazon. We've got this happening now, and I almost guarantee this will get a season 2. If this doesn't get announced for season 2 in a couple days, I would be shocked because everybody's talking about this on Twitter, and a lot of these shows now, it seems like they are getting like 2 season plans or whatever. I want to also give a shout out to Anna Tori. She's Teresa, and I really like her performance as well. I think all of it's great. I can't wait to see Nick Offerman later in the season. There's just so many things that I'm looking forward to and things that I remember of the beats. I can't wait to the first time we see a clicker in action. We saw a hive in this first episode, but we didn't really get to see a full-on clicker yet. And of course, because that's later in the story and later in the game, so I can't wait for that. I love the final scene was great too because it is like that jarring thing that always happens with The Last of Us where you've seen what they can do with Uncharted and fun cinematic stories, so you know what Naughty Dog's reputation is. And I remember that playing this game and seeing this game shown off me like, oh, this is so much, graphic and violent. So to see Joel beat that guard to death that he was giving drugs to earlier in the episode, to see him just brutally murder him in front of Ellie because it's just like instinct, and it's just so good. I'm so happy, and I really think, I hope a lot of people pick up on this and understand just based on the nuances in Pedro Pascal's performances. That also, I will give shout out to Troy Baker and his performance in the game as well. Joel really isn't the good guy of this story at all. And you really get a sense of it already in this first episode. And it just reminds me, playing through the game again, of just realizing how obvious it is. And it's just right there in front of you, just right in front of your nose. But you just, because you're hit with what happens to Sarah so early in the game and early in this story, you're still pulling for him because it's a horrible thing that happened to him. It's a tragedy. A parent losing a child is a tragedy, and you do, in a sense, root for him for that second chance. But yeah, of course I'm breaking this down. This happens later in the game. This will happen later in the show. We'll talk about more of that later. This has been episode 1. When you're lost in the darkness, search for the light. Is what I bet it says in the next episode, because that's the Fireflies say. Anyway, what did you think of the first episode of The Last of Us? Did you like the 80-minute runtime? Did you love how faithful it was to the game? Would you have liked a little bit more adaptation, a little bit more changes to the story than we already got? I don't know. Comment down below. Let us know. Make sure to like, subscribe, click the bell so you get notified and all that crap. Well, I'll be back next week to talk about episode 2 of The Last of Us. The last of the off panel. The last of the off topic. That's it. That's the
Off panel, off topic with Jake and Tyler.